With that discussion on this Heritage Day, Professor William Gumede is an associate professor at the Wits School of Governance. Prof, good morning. You've written a piece entitled Forging a Unique South African Identity, and it's just been a pleasure reading this article by you, but it does remind us of the basis on which apartheid was based. A system like apartheid, for example, it's about segregating us according to the things that make us different, right? And what we're saying this Heritage Day is that that is what makes the country so beautiful, those differences.
No, absolutely. Good morning, Anna. And I wish everyone in the country a happy Heritage Day. The beauty of our country is our diversity, and our diversity actually make us South African. And that's a very, very important thing. You know, during colonialism and during apartheid, the apartheid governments divided us and said, we can never be together because we are so different. But our difference is our South Africanness. And that is the beauty of what we need to do and what we need to create for the present and for the future. Our diversity is our South Africanness and is our common identity.
Has it been a difficult journey for us to move from... Because apartheid in itself, we still see it enacted in so many ways around the country. We still see it in force, not just in the way we are segregated in terms of where we live, where our children go to school, the education we get. What a brilliant system, because it still endures. It's been difficult for us, hasn't it, to move beyond that system, even in our minds?
No, absolutely. It is not easy because a part of creating this belief in a common South Africanness is to also provide for South Africans who've been left behind during apartheid and also left behind in the present. So a big part, because our identity is also in part also built on politics. It is very, very important that we give everyone in the country something. When I say something, that everyone needs to feel they're part of this South Africa, this diverse South Africa. They're part of it materially. They're part of it. They're cultures that have been marginalized in the past, that has not been recognized in the past, that becomes part of acceptance, that languages that were marginalized in the past are now recognized, and so on. And the difficulty so far has been, sadly, is that many previously disadvantaged communities are still disadvantaged. And that really is our problem. So we've been unable to empower many of our previously disadvantaged South Africans. So for many people, it's like apartheid still. They're left behind, they're homeless, they don't have a job, and so on. And that has been our challenge.
And Prof, the issue of non-racialism, in the context of the discussion that we are having now about the beauty in diversity, recognizing other cultures, marveling at other cultures, recognizing your own culture and trying to pay tribute to that on a day like Heritage Day as an example. The non-racialist story or the theme of non-racialism, is it antithetic to the idea of celebrating diversity?
No, it is not. What we need to do is non-racialism and diversity is at our heart of our identity. And I know there are many people who argue, and they argue wrongly, that we cannot be, we cannot have a common South Africans because we're so different. In fact, our difference is our common South Africanness, and that is a critical for our country. Other countries have been really successful in bringing their melting points together. I cannot see why we should not be able, to do it. Our problem is there's also many people, sadly, many of our political leaders that have weaponized our differences for their own self-interest. And it is very, very important that we do not weaponize our difference, that we rather look at our difference, embrace our difference, and use the energy of our difference for development. In our country, it is not going to be possible that if one group is in control, that one group or one ideology or one political party will on their own deliver prosperity. We are interconnected in South Africa, and we have to use that interconnectedness to reach prosperity. But it's going to be very important that we look after every South African, no matter their color. And that is the key, and that is what has not happened since 1994, and sadly it hasn't happened during the apartheid era.
Yeah. You've also talked about in your article the issue of nationalism, and we see how that's unfolding in the US, for example, where there's a real movement towards white nationalism, maybe not even towards, but perhaps even further than that. How do we answer the question of nationalism in South Africa, a country that is as diverse as ours?
So, our response to nationalism must be a nationalism based on diversity, not a nationalism based on one color or one group. And that should be our response. That's the first. The second part of our nationalism must be a civic nationalism, meaning a nationalism based on our constitution and on values. Values will bring us together, not a nationalism built on color. In a diverse society, you cannot build a nationalism based on color or groups. If you're going to do that, the country will implode. So what we need to do is a nationalism built on our diversity. Secondly, a national built on our democracy, and then a nationalism built on care for everyone, like a caring society that goes across races and compassion across race. So if someone is hurt and the person is from a different color, a different ethnic group, we have to be compassionate. So a nationalism based on compassionism that goes across color and across a group. So often the sad part of it, if someone is hurt or from a different color, or someone is unemployed from a different color, we're not compassionate. So we need to build a compassionateness that goes across color and goes across communities and groups.
I mean, you're talking about humanity, Prof. Gumede, and that is a question that is sometimes difficult to answer. And not just in South Africa. I mean, we see it in nations across the world, just basic humanity.
Yes, and because our past has been so divided, where our humanity has been deprived, and what apartheid did and colonialism did, it tried to deprive the humanity of people who were not white. And what we now need to do is we need to restore the humanity of people. And how do we restore it? By bringing back people's cultures, recognizing cultures that's been marginalized, but also giving people material benefits. People have been marginalized, and opportunities. And then what we need to do is recognize people pain in the present and past pain, but also present pain, despite, that goes across a color. So our humanity must not be a humanity based on color. If I'm black, I will only have humanity for other black people. Or if I'm white, I will only feel for white people. No, we have to build humanity that goes across, inclusive humanity that goes across a color. So we failed to do that. We haven't been able to build a compassion in the country that goes across race and color and communities. And we have to do that. It's going to be very, very critical for us to build that common South Africanness.
Yeah, so on a day like Heritage Day, it's easy to float these pie-in-the-sky ideas. And they sometimes do feel like that. They seem like these unattainable goals of, and I want to read from your article, actually, embracing, building on and leveraging South Africa's diversity. And you also go on to write, Prof. Gumede, a democratic state is so central in building a common South African, a common South Africanness. The legitimacy of the state will hinge on whether it delivers. So this is the danger, according to you, Prof. Gumede. The danger for nation building is premised on an effective, inclusive, and caring state. That has been the most difficult question for us to answer. I mean, we've heard the Madlanga Commission as it's been sitting over the past couple of weeks, and the incredible evidence that we have heard there from the National Police Commissioner himself, from the KZN Police Commissioner, about criminal enterprises infiltrating something like the SAPS that's meant to protect the safety of everyone in South Africa's borders. So if we can answer the question of a capable and caring and inclusive state, perhaps then we can start to answer this question about a shared humanity.
No, absolutely. You know, to create this common South Africans, we need a state that delivers for all of South Africans across color, across class. We haven't been able to do that because we politicize the state. We've got cadre employment, we've got color employment, we've got ethnic employment. I mean, some state entities, as I've looked at, you will think the state entity is the Bantustans. It's just one, people from one group and so on. Now, the state in a diverse society, the state is a very, very important bringing together of all communities. And we haven't been able to do that. But we haven't been able to do that because of politics, because of self-interest, not because of other factors. So we have to get our politics right in order to get our common identity right. And that is the weakness of being in a diverse society with a divided past. We have to get the politics right. Other countries may not need to get their politics right if everyone looks the same and everyone talks the same language. But we've got our challenge because we're so diverse, because we have had a divided past. We need to get our politics right. In our state, we need to get the state to function, and the state must be inclusive, and the state must deliver for everyone.
Yeah.
So it's almost existential that we get the state to get to work.
Yeah, and I wonder whether the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, he's leading the government's official Heritage Day celebrations, whether he will deal with this kind of issue. You know, how a corrupt and failing state, I'm not saying we're at failing state position just yet, but how corruption and this lack of service delivery, this endemic corruption, does affect us even on Heritage Day. There's another line from your article, Prof. Gumede, and this is why this is so dangerous, this issue of a failing state, which is the worst case scenario that I'm talking about now. In times of crisis, whether based on economic collapse, corruption, or state failure, citizens in countries with diverse roots, such as South Africa, may fall back on historical self-identities, groups, divisions, making the forging of a shared identity so much harder, but so much more important. So we fall back on our colonial past and our apartheid history.
You know, that's the case. Because the state has failed, many communities have fallen back on the apartheid history. I mean, we've got colored parties now. We've got, all sorts of ethnic-based political movements. We've got political leaders that weaponize ethnicity to get into power, to get a salary, to get elected, and that is because the state has failed. And because the ANC has been the dominant political party for the last 30 years, and because the ANC has not gotten right this non-racial project. I mean, for example, the ANC, my criticism of the ANC, the last couple of years, the ANC has focused on not really creating a multicultural society and a fully non-racial society. The ANC has actually been focusing, whether it's on purpose or it may not be on purpose, but it has been trying to build not a diverse society, but a black society with other groups. And if you look at just another successful society that is multiracial as us, like Singapore, they try to create a multicultural society, full stop. Not a society where one group is the dominant group, like to call it South Africa a black country. I don't think we should call South Africa a black country, but we should call South Africa as a multicultural, as a multi-ethnic country. So that changed our mindset of looking at a country. It changed our mindset of looking at dealing with poverty, dealing with things like homelessness, because it means we then have to look at everyone, no matter their color, and lift them up in order to get a buy-in, so that people can buy into this national project.
It's almost heartbreaking to think of it in that way, but so true. Professor William Gumede, let me thank you for your time.